everyone. My name is Sage Paul. As you know, I live in Toronto. I grew up in a native housing complex in Toronto called Gabriel Dumont, and it was super active culturally and politically and artistically. I also grew up in the local art scene, which was mostly Indigenous art, and it was totally radical and real and fearless, not unlike living in Gabriel Dumont. As a child immersed in the arts, it was fun, and to me it was the real world. I certainly questioned the artistic quality and concepts of the work that were created and shared through all types of mediums and realities, but I never challenged if what I saw was actually art. I didn't see any others in my community questioning the ideals of art either, but that was probably because we had other things to challenge, and I know we still do. Although many of my leaders and role models were educated and regarded artists, academics too, there was no need to dictate such requirements. Growing up Indigenous and without a lot of money, I didn't even have access to these gatekeepers who'd want to monitor such things anyway. To try to create some answers for art is more an exercise of privilege and power than empowering the exercise of practicing art itself. Even as a child, I knew art was a subjective ideal, and I loved that flexibility. Our art world was exciting. Creation in our community was and still is bursting. When I was 9, I got to go to a Buffy St. Marie concert, and Danielle Lenoir was there. After I was invited backstage to meet Buffy, I still remember the little floral crop top denim two-piece I wore and Buffy's big leather accessories. I was so shy. In 1992, I watched the mural of the Americas come to life on a huge wall on Portland Street, a mural commissioned by A Space Gallery in Toronto. My parents and other artists painted away as my brother and I ran around freely, usually finding paintbrushes and other weird things to foster our creativity. Buffalo Jump Ahead brought together numerous performers and storytellers, including me. I played the role of fire on stilts. We also designed and sewed our powwow regalia with everyone in the community. Powwows are the best place to catch up with artist friends. Everything I lived in was art. For me, art was and is an emotionally wavy exploration of integrity and an intrinsic reaction to the influence and inspiration of our culture around us. I'm an artist and a designer. I'm also a sister, student, activist, administrator, an advocate, and the co-founder of the Setsuné Indigenous Fashion Incubator. Setsuné means grandmother in Dene, and we're a collective of young urban Indigenous women, a collective that manifested from a small project I wanted to work on with my younger sister, Sky, in 2013. We're going to collaborate on a collection of works as a fuck you to cultural appropriation. My sister's late millennial perspective of pop culture in the mainstream is pretty witty and poetic. With her brilliance and my love for family, politics, and beauty, we would have had an exciting artistic adventure to go on together. Plus, collaborating artistically with my family and community is probably the most exciting and important for me. Like the start of most of my work, I didn't even consider this endeavor to be art or fashion. I was just pulled to work on this project with my sister, family, and share it. We are a communal species, and I think collaboration is primal. But I knew there weren't many spaces in Toronto that supported or presented artists like us outside of the fashion industry or consumers of fashion who had stereotypical demands of fashion and Indigenous fashion. Aside from fashion being a superficial commercial industry usually, there is also a general entitlement over fashion with an expectation to design for saleability to the customer. Even more so is the entitlement over the use of culture and fashion, the appropriation of culture and fashion, another discussion for another time. My work is really personal to me, so this made me think about why the consumer would feel that ownership over my work in a way that is pretty comfortable for them to feel. The word consumer has commercial or capitalistic implications, but a definition of consume is to absorb, and the act of absorbing art is an important part for the existence of artwork itself, artistic or not. In that sense, we are all consumers of our own work too. Art creates a connection that supports our challenges or connection that supports our challenges or coexistence and co-transformation, for better or worse. This lets me understand how art is universal. So I visualized the work I would develop through fashion, exploring the penetrating philosophies and realities of aesthetic, community, indigeneity, and land. I would find inspiration from my mom to my traditions to mainstream designers like Alexander McQueen. I would walk integrity. From and through the fabric of culture, I could sincerely share my stories and experiences without restriction through fashion and materials. That's when I approached Erica Eiserhoff, a friend and another Toronto Indigenous artist who works in textiles, about developing Setsuné. We would formalize a platform that supported the development of exhibition of our work within an artistic context. It was our turn to maintain and sustain our culture in the traditional ways we learned and continue to learn too. I gravitate to work within an Indigenous framework, with my community and through my culture. It's important for me. With Setsuné, we've created the foundations for that. One of the projects we got to do last summer was brain tan 2 small deer hides in downtown Toronto. Fleshing those hides was visceral, even surrounded by concrete. Those hides are the softest and a cool, creamy color, and pulling those and stretching those deer hands with our hands in downtown Toronto was art itself. And next week, on June 9th, we are launching an exhibition of fashion, textiles, and wearable art called Indian Giver, Truth-Telling and Narratives of Representation at Gallery 1313. It's an exhibition that has been collaborative with community throughout its fruition, and it was inspired by the Fuck You to Cultural Appropriation project with my sister from 2013. With Setsuné, we are carving an inclusive, cross-generational cultural space that fosters the creation of art and fashion. My sister had her son, my nephew Lucian, in between all of this development, and she now brings him to be a part of Setsuné often. So I still get to do this work with her, with family and community. I can confidently see art in the same way as I did when I was a little girl. Art, that subjective ideal overflowing freely from culture, community, and family. Thank you. Merci, ciao.